tonight, fears for major projects as unclear regulations open the door for legal action. Residents warned of flooding with more heavy falls on the way in the top end. He's back. Iowa Republicans pick Donald Trump as their nominee, kicking off the 2024 US election race. And an Aussie Emmy win. Succession star Sarah Snook adds another trophy to her cabinet. Good evening, Kyle Dowling with ABC News. A decision this week to give gas giant Santos the green light to build an underwater pipeline near the Tiwi Islands off the Northern Territory coast has prompted calls for urgent reform to the approvals process for offshore projects. It comes amid growing concerns that unclear regulations will open the door for more litigation, stalling projects and damaging Australia's brand as a top LNG exporter.
Relief for Santos, but a blow to Tiwi Islanders and environmental groups opposed to the project. With federal court approval, the $5.7 billion Barossa gas project will proceed, but the costly court battle has revealed uncertainty around the requirements for consulting First Nations clans, exposing other projects to similar legal action.
The regulatory uncertainty is still there, and there's scope for more challenges to be brought against Barossa and other projects all across the country.
The last-minute injunction sought by Tiwi Islands elders last year cost Santos millions of dollars every week, raising doubts among countries that rely on Australian gas over whether the project would be going ahead at all.
We have our long-standing trade partners like Japan, China, South Korea, Singapore, voicing concerns in a way we've never heard them do it.
Federal Resources Minister Madeleine King has acknowledged the approvals process for offshore projects is in need of reform and says her office is working on clarifying the rules around consultation with local communities to remove uncertainty for the sector. The ABC understands the vast majority of gas from Santos's Barossa project will be sold as LNG overseas.
Australia supplies around 40% of Japan's LNG, and so we're a crucial trading partner.
And as concerns grow over Australia's role in climate change, it's likely Greens groups will continue targeting high-emitting projects.
Barossa is one of the highest carbon dioxide emitting projects in the LNG projects in the world. That is why it's in the crosshairs of environmental organisation.
One battle in a much bigger energy war. Samantha Dick, ABC News.
A man charged with the murder of a Sudanese teenager on New Year's Day in Alice Springs has appeared in court for the first time. 22-year-old Kuyang Wurrell was extradited from Melbourne to Alice Springs on Monday, 2 weeks after the body of 19-year-old Yoel Gatluak was found on a dirt road on the town's outskirts. Mr Wurrell sat with his head bowed as his matter was adjourned to March. Two other males, aged 22 and 17, are also facing charges related to the death. Police have confirmed all three were known to the deceased. Rivers across the top end are rising tonight as days of heavy rain trigger flood warnings in several areas. And there's no relief in sight, with a tropical low expected to deepen as it moves inland over the coming days.
In the skies above Katherine, the bats are in a hurry to get somewhere dry. A deepening tropical low is bringing heavy rain and damaging winds to the area. And with river levels rising, some roads are already cut off.
Anybody on channel?
Arthur Isles was on his way to WA when he hit a flooded section of highway near Timber Creek. He was forced to turn around and is waiting it out at the Victoria River Roadhouse.
When I went up the road here, blokes were flicking the lights at me saying, come back, you better turn around, bud. I said, oh, well, I'm nearly there now, I'll go and have a look. Yeah, no, it was really high yesterday. There's no way anything would have got through that.
Mary River East Cattle Station near Pine Creek is also cut off by road, but owner Alan Fisher says it would take another 5 metres to give him any real trouble.
Yeah, because we end up with massive flood damage and, then it's a major job trying to get around, putting fences up and you've got to have eyes in your back virtually to just watch for crocs.
A monsoon over the top end, combined with the strengthening low, has seen huge rains across the area in the 24 hours to 9 a.m, including 144 millimetres at Adelaide River East and 116 millimetres at the Daly River Police Station. The heavy falls triggering flood warnings across the region and to the west. A flood warning is in place for the Victoria River, and residents in the surrounding areas have been told to get themselves ready and prepare for the possibility of being isolated. In Darwin, it's not at that level yet.
Look, we've seen this a quarter of a kilometre wide, this stretch. It's not really flooding badly yet.
With much more rain forecast, there's plenty of time for that to change. James Elton, ABC News.
Donald Trump has won the first big test of the US election year, taking out the Iowa caucus by a huge margin. The former US president beat his main rivals, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, with the Florida governor coming a distant second tonight. North America correspondent Jade McMillan reports from Des Moines, Iowa.
A resounding victory for the overwhelming favourite. Donald Trump easily beat his Republican rivals in Iowa, picking up more than 50% of the vote.
We want to thank the great people of Iowa. Thank you. We love you all.
In some areas, it was over before it began. Voters at this high school gym outside Des Moines hadn't even cast their ballots before US networks started calling the race for the former president.
CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the Iowa caucuses.
A furious Ron DeSantis described the declarations just half an hour into the caucuses as election interference. But the Florida governor managed to defy expectations and come in a distant second.
In spite of all of that they threw at us, everyone against us, we've got our ticket punched out of Iowa.
Iowa has been in the national spotlight for months, but attention has already moved on to the next stage of this race, with Republicans in New Hampshire voting next week.
Polls suggest Donald Trump will face a much tougher contest there against his former United Nations ambassador, Nikki Haley.
Tonight, I will be back in the great state of New Hampshire. And the question before Americans is now very clear. Do you want more of the same?
But there'll be one less candidate moving on from Iowa after the fourth-placed Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out.
There is no path for me to be the next president.
Donald Trump will head to New Hampshire after stopping in New York for a defamation trial brought by a woman he's been found liable to have sexually abused. Neither that case nor the 4 sets of criminal charges he's facing have shaken the support of his many backers. Jade McMillan, ABC News, Des Moines, Iowa.
The Prime Minister says he'll convene an urgent meeting with the states over a dramatic rise in the nation's road toll. Overnight in New South Wales, 5 people died in 3 separate crashes. In the last year, more than 1,200 people died on Australia's roads.
Dozens of teenagers gathered in grief, staring at the site where 2 young friends lost their lives. Hours earlier, their Nissan sedan slammed into a power pole in Sydney's northwest after colliding with another car.
Speed may be a factor where the Nissan has lost control and crashed into the rear of a Ford Falcon.
2 teenage boys who were passengers in the car died at the scene. The 17-year-old driver was taken to hospital with serious injuries but is expected to recover.
Upon his discharge, Crash Investigation Unit officers will be interviewing him.
The crash happened at 9:40 p.m. 4.5 hours earlier, a man and a woman were killed when their car crashed into a truck in Hay. And a little over 2 hours before, a 77-year-old man was killed when his station wagon hit an SUV in Cowra.
Police say the underlying cause of all 3 crashes was driver error, and there are calls for specific data on the cause of every fatal crash to be made public so experts can analyse how to prevent them.
New data released this week shows more than 1,200 people died in crashes across the country last year. That's an increase of 7% on the year before. Doctors say an increase in hospitalisations is also having an impact on other types of surgery.
Each hospital has a set number of intensive care unit beds. It has a set number of theatres, and therefore if there is more emergency work and more trauma to be done, then something has to give.
The federal government says it's working on a national strategy.
The road toll has been increasing, there is no doubt about that, and some states are doing a little better than others.
Driver behaviour and personal responsibility are important factors as well. Getting that message across is absolutely critical.
A message that could save lives. Leah Harris, ABC News, Sydney.
A pioneer of the top-end hospitality and nightlife scene, John Spelman, has died aged 75. His iconic gay bar and restaurant, the Mississippi Queen, which was built from an old train carriage, was a key hangout for Darwin's queer community for over 2 decades. Mr. Spelman moved to the Territory in the 1960s and owned and operated multiple other popular bars, restaurants and clubs across Darwin. Known as an eccentric and colourful character, Mr. Spelman was thrust into the spotlight after charging his customers a $10 thongage fee for patrons who donned thongs to his venue.
In his time, he really did things his way and he was successful at it. Thankfully his food was good and his general hospitality was good. But if you got him, then you were onto a good thing.
Coming up on 7:30 with Laura Tingle, the Thai national who spent 51 days as a hostage in Gaza.
แกกำลังเดินไปจับประตูแค่นั้นนะครับบุ๊บเข้ามาเลยนะยกมือบอกว่าไทยแลนด์เนี่ยเขาไม่ฟังนะครับแบบมาถึงก็แบบเตะก่อนเลยครับคนแรกที่เข้ามานะระเบิดถือเข้ามาดึงสลักนะครับโอ้โหใจผมแบบหายปุ๊บเลยครับผมก็โอ้โหตายแบบผมคิดอย่างเดียวคือว่าผมตายเนี่ยวันนั้นแบบเป็นเศษเนี่ยวันนั้น
A ballistic missile fired by Yemen's Houthi rebels has struck a US-owned container ship in the Gulf of Aden. The attack further escalates tensions in the Red Sea, where the rebels have been targeting vessels it says are linked to Israel. The Houthis say they're expanding their targets after US and British airstrikes on their positions in Yemen. A military spokesperson says American and British ships are now all considered to be hostile.
The Yemeni armed forces emphasise that the response to the American and British offences is certainly coming, and any new aggression won't pass without a response and punishment.
A days-old ceasefire halting Myanmar's vicious civil war is already showing signs of collapse. The deal was brokered after the military faced its heaviest losses since seizing power in a coup in 2021. But rebel groups say the junta is now launching fresh attacks in Myanmar's northeast.
Commander Mong Song Kar is an unlikely warrior in a war he never wanted.
I don't truly have a yearning for the life of a soldier. Becoming one is an unfortunate trick of fate in this journey.
Once an anti-war poet, he's now on the front lines of a civil conflict that's raged in his country since Myanmar's military seized power in a coup almost 3 years ago.
Being an armed resistance fighter is just a temporary phase of my life. I find it challenging to sit and write poetry.
The junta has killed thousands and imprisoned hundreds more. But resistance forces like Mong Song Kar's have been fighting back alongside a military coalition known as the Three Brotherhood Alliance. Last week, that alliance agreed to a ceasefire with the military after achieving its biggest victories yet, forcing the junta to surrender several towns, including scam city Laokai, near the Chinese border.
When you combine the mass surrenders and defections with the battlefield losses that the military junta has been experiencing throughout the country in recent months, it paints an unprecedented picture.
What we are seeing is the Myanmar military being forced to make some very difficult, some very painful choices about where it stands and fights and where it just retreats.
Human rights groups say they've been collecting evidence of possible war crimes.
A spokesperson for the Department of Foreign Affairs said the Australian government strongly condemns the ongoing repression and violence by the Myanmar regime and supports measures to ensure accountability for international crimes committed in Myanmar.
Mong Song Kar still writes poetry when he can,
But no one knows how this story ends.
Even if I were to perish in the armed revolution, I wish to be remembered as a poet on my tombstone.
Lauren Day, ABC News.
It's been a big week for Australian actress Sarah Snook winning a Golden Globe, a Critics' Choice Award, and tonight sealing the trifecta with an Emmy. Hollywood has finally come together for the 75th Emmy Awards, delayed from last year by the writers' strike.
Honouring the prime of prime time.
The shows that kept us glued to the tube.
Hosted by comedian Anthony Anderson, with a novel way of getting celebrities to wind up their acceptance speeches.
This year, I've got something that nobody can ignore. My mama.
Australian actress Elizabeth Debicki missed out for her portrayal of Princess Diana in The Crown. Instead, Best Supporting Actress in a Drama Series went to Jennifer Coolidge for her role in The White Lotus.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to play this incredible character, and he says I'm definitely dead, so I'm going along with it. I know I'm getting wrap it up. Okay, yes, okay.
Baby.
Yes, and I just...
I love you, baby, but time.
Okay, guess what?
Succession.
It was the media dynasty drama Succession about the cutthroat Roy family that triumphed, with 6 awards, including the prestigious Best Drama trophy.
We are so honoured. We've loved making this show. Thank you very much indeed.
Stellar cast. I must make special mention to my on-screen wife, Sarah Snook.
Sarah Snook, Succession.
Australian Sarah Snook took home the Best Actress trophy, paying tribute to her parents.
Thank you for having a dress-up box when I was a kid. I think this is where it gets you.
And her young daughter.
It's all for you from here on out. Thank you.
Both The Bear and Beef won 5 awards each.
Ali Wong.
Ali Wong becoming the first woman of Asian descent to win an Emmy in a lead role.
Cheers.
And in a nod to the past...
Anthony, thank you for getting us all here. Being together brings back some great memories of a show we're all very proud of.
Celebrating not only today's best in television, but also remembering loved classics. Joni Jones, ABC News.
To finance now, and there was a fairly significant drop on the share market today, while consumer sentiment has fallen to very low levels, typically seen during a recession. Here's David Chow.
There's a lot of doom and gloom on the minds of Australian consumers, which isn't very good for business. Right now, the number of pessimists out there far outweighs the number of optimists, according to the latest Westpac Melbourne Institute consumer survey. Cost of living pressures and interest rate anxiety are clearly eating into their budgets and future spending intentions. It's almost as if we were living through some kind of a recession. Interestingly, out of the 1,200 people surveyed, more than half of them are expecting their mortgage repayments to keep rising, even though financial markets are speculating there could be 2 interest rate cuts from the Reserve Bank by the end of this year. So quite a big divide there. Meanwhile, there was also a bit of pessimism for the share market, which fell to a 4-week low after the All Ords and ASX 200 fell by a pretty steep 1.1% today. Not many companies did well, but the biggest drags on the market were mining stocks like BHP, Rio and Fortescue, due to a drop in commodity prices. In particular, iron ore, which is going through a correction, and it's fallen to a 6-week low on concerns about the health of the Chinese economy. Overseas, Wall Street was closed for a public holiday, while markets in Europe and Asia slipped. And finally, the Aussie dollar also took a dive. It's trading at just over 66 US cents, which is its weakest level in a month. And that's finance.
Australian Open organisers have defended changes to spectator seating between games after a player took issue with the new rules. Australia's Jordan Thompson hit out at the policy, which now allows fans to move in and out of stadiums more easily.
Getting into the tennis can be a waiting game.
Sometimes you want to go and grab something to drink.
Going to the toilet, having a wander around to see what entertainment.
Take in the atmosphere. But it's now easier to get your seat. Fans can come in and out every game instead of every second game when the players switch ends. Not everyone's happy.
Oh my God, this is the workers' corner.
Jordan Thompson may have misused the word woke, but his frustration is clear, joining the likes of Novak Djokovic in voicing his opposition to the extra movements and noise.
We're out there working, like that's our job, we're tennis players. We don't come in and storm into an office while someone's in a meeting.
If it's not going to disrupt the players, that's a reasonable thing.
We don't really like it.
Yeah, a little bit distracting, I think, for the players.
On the sides of the courts, I'm in favour, and I've been saying this now for a year or so, that should be open. People should be able to come and go as they please, as if they're going to a basketball or a football game.
Fans brought the noise for Australian Max Purcell.
There it is.
It took Purcell 3 agonising attempts to seal his first singles victory. James McCabe has been knocked out in 4 sets in his slam debut, and fellow Australian wildcard Olivia Gadecki was no match for former US Open champion Sloane Stephens. The top women's seed is also through to the second round. Iga Swiatek passing a tough test against former champion Sophia Kenin. Another former champion, Naomi Osaka, gave a frank assessment of her Grand Slam comeback.
Of course, there's a voice in my head, so that's who are you to think that you can come back and immediately start winning matches?
Osaka, who gave birth to her first child in July, lost to Caroline Garcia in her return to a major tournament. Tom Maddox, ABC News, Melbourne Park.
The West Indies have named 3 debutants for the opening test at Adelaide Oval tomorrow. Captain Craig Braithwaite expects them to show plenty of fight. Australian captain Pat Cummins says he doesn't know what to expect from the visitors, but he's backed both Steve Smith and Cameron Green to perform in their new roles for the home side.
Steve Smith puts in some final touches as he begins a new chapter of his career as a test opener.
It's a new challenge for him, which I don't think you can underestimate. I've never seen him, it's as happy and as energetic I've seen him around the nets the last couple of days. He can't wait to get out there.
Pat Cummins today confirming Smith will open against the West Indies, while Cameron Green comes into Smith's place at number 4. The Australian captain says he's confident Green will fire in his position and has no doubt Smith will extend his career as an opener.
Our intention isn't just to give this a test or two and see how it goes. We want to make sure it's a shift that's pretty much permanent, and we want to give it a good crack, and not only for Steve but for Green and the rest of the order.
It's a new position for him, so we like to come out in as hard as possible. We got to come at all the batsmen.
Australia's side looked relaxed in its final net session today and even mixed with some fans, signing autographs for one lucky supporter on his 10th birthday.
What does your sign say?
It's my birthday, can I please have your autograph?
The West Indies also took the field this afternoon with Kavem Hodge and Justin Greaves, along with paceman Shamar Joseph, named to play their first tests. Captain Craig Braithwaite expects them to show plenty of fight.
They're here playing, and performance is always important. So I urge each player to go there and make a name for yourselves, and play Test cricket for the next 10 years. Simple.
The West Indies go into the match as heavy underdogs, having not beaten Australia in a test in almost 21 years. Cameron Slessor, ABC News.
Western Australian rider Sam Welsford has outlasted some well-credentialed sprinters to win the opening stage of this year's Tour Down Under. There were several falls as international and Australian riders had to negotiate baking hot conditions in South Australia's Barossa Valley.
With temperatures already well into the 30s, cyclists faced a tough 144-kilometre stage. The first day of the international season with early breakaways and spills featuring before teams positioned for the first 3-second sprint bonus.
Wow, that's a good result for Finn Fisher-Black. He gets the points.
Gusty winds were making conditions tough for cyclists.
Picking up last time round, that windmill was barely turning.
As Louis Barre and George Zimmerman went out on their own. While Barre won the King of the Mountain honours, it was Zimmerman who took out the second sprint bonus. But the pair was eventually reeled in by the peloton, with the pressure turned up as the teams positioned for the run home to the finish. Not all were going to be competing for top honours.
Oh, we had a crash. That's Jackson Medway from the Australian national team who's gone down there.
The speed was on as the peloton zeroed in on the finish line, with sprinters including Caleb Ewan ready to roll. However, he's been battling illness this week and wasn't able to challenge.
It is Welsford on the line.
Yeah, wow. That was crazy. I'm lost for words. Like, it was really hairy down the hill. Lots of crashes and like near misses, but boys just kept calm, be patient, and wow, they did an amazing job for me today.
Not a bad first day on the job for his new team, Bora Hansgrohe. It'll be a tough ask to back it up on stage 2 tomorrow, 141 kilometres from Norwood to Lobethal in the Adelaide Hills. Matthew Smith, ABC News.
Athletes around the world are deep into qualifying events for this year's Paris Olympics. Among them are 2 young Australians. They have big plans to represent their nation and their generation as the Games turn to street sports to try to attract a new audience.
Here. Chloe Cavell is kick-flipping her way to the top. Great combination there. The 13-year-old skateboarder went from 5th to 4th ranked in the world at the recent WST Street World Championships in Tokyo. She's been training hard near her home in Tweed Heads.
Yeah, I've been skating pretty well lately. I just landed a new trick yesterday.
Chloe is among the next generation of Olympic hopefuls, competing in sports that are fresh off the streets.
It's always great to have new sorts in it, and yeah, so happy for skating to be in there.
It's great for the new generations that are coming along, you know, it's the types of things that they're interested in.
While skateboarding featured at the Tokyo Olympics, breaking makes its first appearance in 2024. Northern New South Wales teen Jeff Dunn will be there vying for gold.
I feel very proud and honoured to be there, you know, especially it being introduced to the Olympics and it's first every year, you know.
Breaking is among 9 sports making a debut at the Paris Olympics. Organisers want to build a temple of urban sports at the Place de la Concorde in the centre of the city to showcase the breaking and skateboarding events.
I think they're going to prove their worth at the Olympics, and I think a lot of people that disagree that it should be in the Olympics, I think their minds will change after they witness it firsthand what these athletes are capable of.
So perfect. Young Australians breaking down Olympic traditions. Hannah Ross, ABC News, Tweed Heads.
Turning to the weather now, and tonight's viewer photo is showcasing some dark clouds about Central Australia and was sent in by Casey Crowcamp. Showers across much of the territory today. There were some isolated storms as well. A top of 30 in Darwin today, 31 degrees in Warramayunga. Zooming out, Katherine and Jabiru reached 30 and Borroloola 34. 38 degrees for Alice Springs and a scorching 44 in Yulara, and Tennant Creek topped 32. On the satellite, we can see monsoon clouds with rain and storms across the north of the country. Thunderstorm clouds also developed in the west in the afternoon. The monsoon trough remains across the base of the top end, a tropical low sitting west of Daly Waters, while there are additional troughs sitting over WA and Central Australia. Interstate tomorrow, storms and rain across the east of the country. 23 degrees in Hobart, 29 at the top for Sydney. Melbourne heading for 23, Canberra heading for the same, a top of 23 degrees as well. 31 degrees in Brisbane, 23 in Adelaide, and Perth expected to reach 32 degrees. Back in the territory tomorrow, Alice Springs and Yulara headed for 39 degrees, Tennant Creek 31 and Papunya 41. Further north, where heavy rain is continuing, Katherine headed for 30, 32 in Borroloola and a top of 33 in Gallawinku. And in the west, 31 in Wadair, rain and a possible storm for Darwin tomorrow, heading for 32 degrees. There are flood warnings in place across the NT with significant rises in the levels of rivers and creeks across the Adelaide, Daly, Katherine and Victoria rivers. There'll be a high tide at 11 minutes past 9 and low tide at 3:30 in the afternoon. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:32 and set at 7:20. Ahead in Darwin, heavy falls continuing tomorrow. Showers and possible storms still expected for the coming days. In Alice Springs, a medium chance of showers starting from tomorrow. Hot conditions are likely to continue with temperatures hovering around the high 30s. Stay with us now. Laura Tingle is up next with 7:30. Good night.